Welcome to the Internet Advisor, your place for technology news, interviews with industry experts, and answers to your computer questions since 1998. The door is always open at InternetAdvisor.net. But right now it's time to get you in touch with your team of tech experts on this year's edition of Internet Advisor.
This week on the Internet Advisor, electric truck. Apple is flying high with their products and services. We'll talk a little bit about that. Netflix is raising their prices. And Starlink, SpaceX's project, is reaching far and wide. We'll have Mike Brennan with MI Tech News and your questions in the Internet Advisor mailbag. This coming up on the Internet Advisor. Welcome to the Internet Advisor. My name is Carson. We're here every week giving you the best in technology and telling you ways to get in and around the Internet. We're here with our normal crew every week, starting first with the man who invented the Internet Advisor program show, coming from our studios in sunny Southeast Florida, Mr. Gary Baker. How are you doing today?
Hey, Cal, I'm doing great, thanks.
And in
It's
addition
raining.
to that,
It's not sunny today.
It's raining
down here. Yeah.
Oh,
Can you imagine that in southern
yeah.
Florida being
Send some
rainy?
of that to California.
That's right. Oh boy, do they
we
need
can
it.
put the fires out. And that voice saying send some to California is the one and only Mr. Ed Rudel, coming to us from the compound somewhere located near Oxford, Michigan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Cal. Thank you.
I see the fire is fired up and the pot's on the stove and life is good. Is that correct?
At least my back is warm, yes.
Well, we won't play with that too much for sure. Hey, Ed, you have been our resident, well, I won't say resident, but you've been on top of this SpaceX project for the last few weeks or so. And anytime they have new information about it, you've been bringing it to us. And I hear you've got some more fascinating facts about SpaceX and the Starlink project.
Well, this is the Internet Advisor. And, you know, we were, when we started out, it was dial-up. And then we went to broadband and cable providers. And now we have satellite links, and DSL and ADSL are a thing in the past. But now Elon Musk and SpaceX has launched a number of satellites, now in excess, I think, of over 900. So since we last spoke about 3 weeks ago of Starlink, they've launched an additional 140 miniature satellite cubes in orbit. And what's the news, though, this week is that they've opened it up to beta testing. And the beta testing is called Better Than Nothing. I mean, so a couple of weeks ago, we brought out the thing that they were providing it to indigenous tribes in Washington State and the firefighters in Washington State and California, because of how remote their systems are, or their locations are. They had no internet access. Well, now they've opened it up to beta testers. And if you go to starlink.com to sign up for additional information and their newsletter, I believe they're selecting people in the northern parts of the United States to get a beta subscription to this. So it costs you like $500 for the satellite downlink, wireless router, and tripod. So about $500 for that, but then it's $99 a month. And I'm like, that's cheaper than most satellite reception. And the drawback is they say that the system's going to go up and down, latency speeds will increase, or the entire network may shut down. So for the privilege of being a beta tester, you get some very spotty internet. But one of the things I thought was fascinating was their latency. So right now their latency is about 20 milliseconds to 40 milliseconds. They're promising the beta testers that it'll probably reach 16 milliseconds. And I'm like, I wonder what Spectrum and Comcast and WOW, what their latency speeds are. So their latency speeds are about 4 milliseconds, 4 or 5 milliseconds for cable. So standard satellite is about 12 milliseconds.
Yeah, so this isn't as good as even standard satellite yet. It will be.
Yeah.
And it's about 4 times slower than your Comcast cable link, right?
Well, as far as latency, yes.
latency from
The
that
latency
standpoint.
basically is like the time it takes between the click and the receive and the return of the command. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so you click and now still 16 milliseconds, you're not going to notice a huge difference uh, between what you'd have at Comcast and what you get with Starlink. You know, when you have a beta test like this, you're always testing things, and they're telling their subscribers, hey, when we test things, we're going to try to do this, may slow it down, may speed it up. We're going to try this, may slow it down, may speed it up. We're going to try this, it may actually take an outage. We'll
Yeah.
put it right back up. It's not like they're doing, and they may have some maintenance things where they have to now change the firmware on all these satellites, right? And that may take some time, and it may have intermittent outage in different places, different parts, depending on what satellite you're connected to. So I don't know if it would be real spotty, but there will be times, and I think that's what they're referring to.
Right. And one of the things we discussed is that this is primarily targeted towards the northern U.S. Canada border. But Gary, you found some interesting topics about Starlink concerning the down where you're at and some of
Well,
the
yeah,
coastal
what I was
islands
saying
in
was,
Cuba. Yeah.
yeah, what I was saying was, hey, what about us down here in
Yeah.
South Florida? And more importantly, I take my boat out. Wouldn't it be great to have access to Starlink instead of, Viasat and some of the other satellites that, don't serve this area very well? There was just yesterday a groundbreaking research by Rural Connectivity in Latin America and the Caribbean. They talk about 77 million people in rural areas of Latin America and the Caribbean can't access even minimal quality internet services. And when you look at the number of people in this area, the population in this area, there's 32%, they say, have no access to the internet whatsoever. That's 244 million people. And it's right here on our southern doorstep. Now,
Well,
of course, anybody cruising the Caribbean, we can afford to pay for things. There's some fair number of people expats that retire down here because it's so cheap to retire in one of the Caribbean islands, and you have beautiful scenery and whatnot. So there's at least some market here, but obviously the Mayan Indians up in Guatemala and Nicaragua and some of those places, they're not going to be able to afford much, right?
Well,
So that's probably why this is the way it is.
well, it's good to know that they are working on ways to make internet access available to people who would normally not have it. And even slow internet access is better than no internet access at all. We'll be back with more information here on the Internet Advisor. Welcome back to the Internet Advisor. We're here talking about all sorts of fascinating things going on and around the internet. And one thing that we were talking about in the previous segment was 5G and its proliferation as it's starting to move around the world. Gary, you were saying that 5G is bigger and better in other places other than the United States at this time?
Yeah, there are 14 other countries. First of all, under 4G, most of them had better and faster internet than we did. But under 5G, the difference is dramatic. And when you think about the internet started here in the United States, and granted, there are certain areas where we don't have very good internet at all, some of our rural areas.
That was easy for
And
you to say.
yeah, not so much, eh? But when you think about what Starlink is attempting to do, which is provide that internet service, it's still not going to be really fast, but at least those rural areas will have internet access finally. When you look at the list of countries, and you would automatically think that they're small, like Germany and United Kingdom and
right.
maybe Switzerland. South Korea's on that list, but you also see Canada and you see Australia, and the number one country that has the fastest 5G speeds right now is Saudi Arabia.
Well,
Really?
which is interesting, isn't it? I thought so too.
Well,
They
it's
they got
interesting
a
on one
lot of money.
side, and on the other side, it's pretty logical in the sense that number one, they got tons and tons and tons of money. You know,
Our oil money, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
so everybody's oil money. They're just making
that's
tons
right.
of money off everyone. So when you have that excess amount of, uh, uh, I guess, cash or currency in your economy, yeah, you can experiment. You can go out and you can expand things that other countries don't have all the money to do. And
Yeah, but
5G is one of those things.
yeah, but that's, the United States cellular network is based on, uh, you know, different companies where the other ones are subsidized substantially by the governments, right?
Yep. Well, that
And all
only,
that oil money.
And all that
yeah,
oil money. That's where I'm
but that
going. And
oil money will only
and over
last,
here, it's
but
capitalism, right?
yeah, that oil money will last only but so long because if they keep going in the direction they're going with the mobility and vehicle market, and that direction is electric, I guess they'll be trying to figure out what to do with their high-speed internet and no money in their pocket. And that just leads me into the announcement that they had this week from GM, which I was really excited. The Hummer name is coming back. And if we remember Hummer from back in, I say, like the late 80s and the 90s, Hummer was synonymous with people who had lots of money because it took lots of gas to drive one of those rascals around. They had notoriously bad gas mileage. Well, the new Hummer that's coming back, and this Hummer is coming under the GMC nameplate. This new Hummer won't have to worry about gas mileage because there is no gas. This one is all electric, and it's going to be one heck of a truck. The first one starting out will be, and I tell you, I was going to line up real quick and buy one, but then I looked at the price tag and figured I'd back off a little bit. The first truck will be $110,000 to start with. That
Is
vehicle,
that the
Oh my
armored
gosh.
version or the
no,
pedestrian version?
this is one of the Highline versions. They got two of them coming out that are Highline, and that those two will have the 110 to $120,000 price tag. They also will have three electric motors in the vehicle, enabling this vehicle to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. So it's going to be one hell of a fast vehicle. It'll also
Well, it'll
have.
be.
Go ahead.
I was going to say they'll have that thing manufactured just about the time they finish I-75 construction.
They
And then maybe
will
you can go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
they will be building it near I-75 over at the old Hamtramck plant. It's now called Factory Zero, which stands for zero emissions. So it's an all-electric vehicle facility that they're going to be doing over there. It'll have the Cadillac Super Cruise function in it, which will allow you to do hands off the wheel drive, self-driving function on major highways.
Yeah.
So that'll be built into it as well. Later on, from now to 2022, they'll come out with three other models. A second one will be a high performance model with three motors. And then the other two models will have two motors, one on the front wheels and one on the back wheels. They're all multi-wheel drive vehicles. So they'll be that way, and they'll be respectively lower in price. I think the cheapest one will be somewhere in the $80,000 range.
Well, Cal, we've seen GM lag in the EV, the electric vehicle world. They lagged Ford for a long time. What's Ford doing to catch up? Does anybody know? Ed, do you follow this quite a bit?
A little bit, for GM, to be fair, did come out with the Volt, and what was the other one called?
They had the Volt with
Bolt,
a V and the
yeah.
Bolt with a B.
Yeah, that went
Oh,
poof.
that's right. Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't go well. But Ford is coming out with their Mustang, and that's going to be manufactured in their electric vehicle Mustang. That'll be manufactured in Mexico.
That'll
And
be the Mustang E,
Yes,
as in Edward.
yeah, and I think the Hummer just beat that from 0 to 60. So I think the Ford one was like 3.5 seconds, but and the F-150, which is going to be manufactured at the old Rouge plant, and the batteries are being manufactured there right now. But the Rouge plant has been around forever, so it's good to see these legacy historic buildings being renovated to for the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean,
And they're hiring more people. and highly skilled and traditional skilled people. So that's great.
Yeah, so it's a good idea that if you're a younger person to start looking at those type of technologies as a possible career path to go in. There'll be more and more of those opportunities coming up as they go along. Ford and GM are talking a lot more about electric vehicles. I'm sure FCA Chrysler will be coming out with some their own as well. So it's going to be a strange but different market, because I got to tell you, yesterday I was driving down the freeway and some guy in a Dodge Challenger just shot by me, and you could hear the roar of the engine and that sort of thing.
They do sound nice.
I can't wait till that Mustang flies by me and it just goes, and that's it. You just won't hear anything.
All
because
you hear is
that's
road
right.
and wind noise. That's it. No engine
Yeah.
noise.
Or
And
maybe
if you
just
want, I heard they have
whine
an
of the battery.
optional PA system that you could put on there where that manufactures engine noise if you'd like. It's just, it's like $1,000 option. Right? So
Well,
That's
well,
just like,
and that's for pedestrians, right? Because those little electric
Really,
vehicles,
it is.
they'll sneak up on you.
yeah, I mean that's just like what they're doing for football now with COVID. They have the they have the audiences out there that they plug in for you. So I guess they'll be plugging that in for your car now, which is really
that's
strange.
a great analogy.
Or if they mix up the tape and they ship you the wrong one, and you see a football game, it goes with the quarterback, and your car goes it just be weird as heck. But
and I also heard that
How was
General
that, Cal?
Motors,
Could you do that again?
and I heard that General Motors autonomous vehicle or assisted driving, what did you call it? Actually beat out Teslas
Oh, really?
this week.
Oh,
it's called
So-
Cadillac Super Cruise.
Yeah,
is
the
what it's
Super
called.
Cruise, and it was
Yeah.
because not only did it perform better as far as driving performance, but also for making sure that the driver was actually paying attention, because it uses the infrared cameras to monitor eye movement.
Yep, exactly.
And
Nice.
Consumer Reports gave them a better rating this past week.
Now, I
So,
know I'm jumping off the subject just a little bit, Gary, but quickly in the next 30 seconds or so, your boat runs on diesel, I assume. Do you think, are there electric
That's correct.
modifications available for a craft your size as well?
Oh, well, we have solar energy panels up on the roof.
Okay.
So we use solar as well as diesel when we're at Anchor. Right now, I'm not using any diesel at all. I'm using the solar until that runs out. It's been raining all day today, but then we'll have to fire up the generator maybe late in the day. So yeah, so it's always a combination. But they have now fully electric boats,
Wow.
and they're expensive, just like the cars. They're and to push our boat is rated at 47 ton, right? So you got a little bit of weight here to push through the water, and when you do that, it requires a lot of electricity.
Well, we're going to push you off to the side for a second and take care of some business with advertising. We'll be back with the Internet Advisor. Welcome back to the Internet Advisor. Every week we're here with the Internet Advisor. You can catch our podcast if you go to internetadvisor.net. And we have our podcast up there at least by Tuesday of every week. Also, if you have a question that you'd like to submit to the Internet Advisor, please feel free to go to internetadvisor.net. On our homepage, go all the way down to the bottom of the page. There's a contact us button there. Click on it, submit your question, and believe me, you can put all the detail on earth in that question. The more, the better. It gives us a better chance to be able to answer that question effectively to you. Once you do that, hit the submit button. We'll get it. We'll take a look at it. We'll answer it and send you back the answer. Or you can hear the answer read right here on our podcast. So go to internetadvisor.net and get that done today. It's been just a crazy month for Apple. Things have just been going really, really good for them. And I always have some great news to talk about. But then again, there's some news that it's not that it's bad news, it's just different news that I saw about Apple. And Apple in this quarter slipped to fourth place fourth place when it comes to smartphone sales. They've got overtaken by, I believe, a Chinese company. I cannot pronounce the name. It's spelled Xiaomi. I'm going to call it Xiaomi maybe. And they've taken over third place in that particular case for smartphone sales in, I guess, in the world. And I expect that to continue to go that way because a lot of these Chinese smartphone companies that are coming along, they've got all of China to be able to sell to. So the numbers are going to be outstanding for them. But of course, innovation and new stuff that's really cool will always outsell. So, who knows what's going to happen coming in the near future with both Samsung and Apple and what they're going to put out as well.
Well, it's just not China they're selling to. They're selling to India and the European Union. And it's only the United States where some of those phones are not allowed.
Yeah.
Right. Because of, we don't like, Huawei, phones here and their 5G network, for whatever reasons. And so then they don't allow those phones here.
Yeah, because they
but
figured
there's plenty of other places they could sell them.
Yeah, and it's a big world, so there's lots and lots of opportunity that's available out there. The other thing that I noticed, and this was kind of exciting because it doesn't really get talked about that much, believe it or not. Ever since the advent of the iPhone, that's been pretty much the front runner in all of Apple's product line. But Apple saw an all-time high in Mac sales during the fourth quarter of 2020, over $9 billion in Macs that got sold during that time. And they based that on the fact that, with the COVID thing and shelter in place and working from home, a lot of people are getting new hardware to work with. And that has triggered outstanding
absolutely.
sales.
And I can attest to that. My son Talon works for Disney now. He used to be Fox Studios, right? And he sold the FX network, and he's been working at home for 8 months and on his original Mac that he took from work with their permission, of course. And now they just gave him a MacBook or one of those what are the big Mac stations, Mac Pros that are 27-inch. So they sent him one of those things directly to his house. So, I could see that because he does a lot of film editing for Disney/Fox networks. And he could do that from home. So I imagine there's all sorts of people that can do the same thing.
I could use a part-time job in an upgrade. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, that sounds great. But yeah, more and more people are working from home, and that is triggering sales to rise. Also, wow, I think we lightly talked about it, but Netflix is raising the price of their service by $1 a month. For their most popular plan. That's the 4K plan that they have going on now. And it's really interesting that they've only raised it that much. Analysts are saying that Netflix is actually a great value, even at $18 a month. With the streaming wars going on in the past couple of months, you've got Peacock that's running out there from the Comcast NBC network. You've got HBO Max that they have out there as a streaming service. You got Disney Plus as a streaming service. There are so many people battling, and Apple's in there as well. So there's so many people that are battling for your dollar, and everybody wants to have a revenue stream on a regular basis coming in. And it appears that Netflix still is the dominant force out there. They've got the largest library of anybody. They've got the biggest subscriber base of anybody out there. I think it's like 192 million people use Netflix. So it's quite substantial.
Yeah, you got to wonder if the cable companies are not shaking in their boots a little bit about Starlink, because they're based on, broadband, right? And I'm paying almost $90 a month just for internet access from Spectrum. It's just ridiculous. I cut the cord, and it is ridiculous how much they charge just for internet. So for $9 more, I could get Starlink. I'd have to put a $500 fee up front, but so what?
So what you think about, we're moving now to satellite-based communication. When you go back to this day in history, right? The Pony Express stopped working this week, in 1861 because of the transcontinental telegraph put them out of business.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
and they actually, I read that same article too. They actually stopped the day that they turned the line on. They
Yeah,
they,
2
they
days
they just
after, I
look
think
back and
something.
say, they look
That's
back and
it.
said, I give up. We're done.
Yep.
well, it
Done.
was also based on the trains at the same time had been out and the nails were already in the coffin, if you will.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Well,
but the
the
train
train,
carried a lot of mail.
exactly, that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
the trains were able to provide the right of way and the path for the telegraph line to be laid. Because if you've ever
That's right.
rode a train before, you look on the side of the track, there's the telegraph line that's running along with it. And I guess, as fast as electricity travels, they said, well, we'll never have a horse that'll run that quick. So we might as well just back this thing in and go home. So,
Well, and 108 years later, the first computer to computer message was sent over what we now call a wide area network, right, over the telephone lines. And it was from UCLA up to Stanford. And that was in October 29th in 1969. That was the birth of what is now the modern internet. Didn't have TCP/IP back then, so we didn't have the protocol, but we had the very first message transmitted. And in fact, one of the people present at that time, there was one of the teams, on one of those teams, he was a grad assistant, I think, at that time, and that was Vint Cerf,
Mhm.
who's been on our show many times.
yeah,
So just the
was that
father of
first
the internet.
Yeah,
was
which
that
you, yeah, it
first
was,
message, Watson, come here?
No,
no, actually,
that was different type of communication, but very good.
the first message that was sent in what was it year? 1947,
It's
1930,
69.
1969.
1969. The first message was supposed to be login, LOGIN, but it turned out to be LO, and then the computers crashed. So the first
That's
message
right.
was
Oh, I forgot that fast. That's
so
right.
the first message was basically like an abbreviation that the kids use now, which is laugh out loud. So LO, laugh out.
Interesting.
And therefore history was made.
Yes.
Hey, there was other history done today as well, Ed. One of your favorite Microsoft products, right? October 25th, 2001, they released
Windows XP, which was a substantial improvement over Windows Me and Windows 2000. It was a marriage between the Windows 95, 98 environment, which was the home environment, to the Windows NT server environment. And it allowed people, it was a marriage between those two operating systems. It was almost a complete rewrite of the operating system. And it was by far one of Microsoft's favorite, or consumers' favorite versions of Windows. Many people, even nowadays, still prefer that interface. And when Microsoft went to the Windows, why am I drawing a blank?
Vista.
No, even what came after Vista? Why am I drawing a blank?
Tried it too. I can't remember either.
Wait a minute.
Most people just hated that interface. It was
Well,
touch screen only, right?
Well, yep. Oh,
And-
was that Bob or Dave or something like that?
Boy, we're getting old, the Internet Advisor, when we can't remember.
Well, I don't think it's so bad that we're getting old. It's that Microsoft came out with too many different operating systems and they changed the numbering scheme all over the board.
So now we have the Windows 10 interface as opposed to the Windows 8 interface, and they went away from the tablet mode, and now we have a traditional interface that's very Windows XP like, Windows 95 like, which seems to be the consumer's version. And speaking of which, Cal, you found an interesting article about how you can run the Windows operating system on a Google Chromebook, running a virtual machine, and you can actually start running those applications, those Microsoft Store applications and traditional Office applications and anything else on a Google Chromebook.
Yeah, they've decided to open up the world just a little bit wider, and that's good to see. That makes that platform more versatile and it gives you more choice to be able to do the things that you want to do. And speaking of choices, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll deal with the choice source for information around Michigan and the great state. We'll have Mike Brennan from MI Tech News coming up next on Internet Advisor. Welcome back to the Internet Advisor, and it's that time every year. It's that time this week where we go to our source for information in and around the great state of Michigan. It's the man who knows everything that's going on with technology in Michigan. That's Mike Brennan with MI Tech News. Good day, Mike.
How you doing, Cal?
Doing exceptionally well, sir. And of course, your sidekick and informational reader of MI Tech News, Gary Baker. Take it away.
Well, and thanks. Hey, Mike, how you doing today?
Doing good, Gary. I hope it's like I said before we started. I'm hoping it's lousy weather in Florida. I'm just kidding.
Unfortunately, it is.
It's good again.
Yeah,
what a surprise, right?
It was raining. It
Yeah.
does rain down here a lot, but usually not all day. This one could be close to all day rain. But anyway, hey, I tune in and get your mytechnews.com newsletter every week to figure out what's going on from a technology standpoint. But you report sometimes how other parts of the economy are going to affect technology or just the economy in general. And it was kind of the newsletter this week had a number of economic predictions, right, by different people. Comerica Bank, one of them.
Yeah. Well, we can start with Comerica, but one of the things I wanted to do was, lately it's just been a cavalcade of bad news. So we are getting some better news, and certainly we can talk about that. And Comerica Bank comes out every month with an index that looks at a variety of factors, in the economy and different things like that, and then it puts it into a number form. Now, well, and it's a bit of a lag. I mean, right now, so we're looking at August activity, which of course doesn't reflect what's happening in October, but it takes a while to crunch the numbers. And over the summer, things began to kind of move upward again slowly. Of course, the downside is for the whole year, it's way down from a year ago, but one would expect that because it's been a heck of a tough ride economically this year,
Sure
as well
has.
as health-wise, right? But I mean, it's good news. I mean, as we go into the fall, my only concern, as you know, on my show on Monday, we have an epidemiologist on every week, and it scares the pants off me. And we're moving into the period where everybody goes back inside. So it remains to be seen the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Certainly is impacting our health, but they're all related. But I mean, at least in the sense of the summer, things were getting better.
Yep. And the bigger employers, excuse me, in our state, and we have a lot of them, they think that the federal economies, if it stabilizes and we concentrate on virus protection, we may actually, it'll help Michigan a lot, right?
Well, help everybody a lot. Business leaders for Michigan, which, as you said, in fact, Doug Rothwell is leaving. Doug Rothwell, the original president of the MEDC, when it changed over a number of years ago, when before it was with the Michigan Jobs Commission or something or other. Anyway, so Doug is retiring, but in his last report, which shows the second quarter trends, or at least a reversal of the second quarter trends. In the third quarter, the survey of these very large employers in the state of Michigan are saying that over the next 6 to 12 months, they expect the economy to stabilize, which is pretty consistent with what every economist is saying around the country. Of course, the caveat again, I don't want to sound like the Grim Reaper, the caveat again is how we handle the COVID-19 situation. And so that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I would think a lot is the new is the new normal. This may be the new normal for a while, and it takes a while for big corporations to adjust to that. And that may be what we're seeing.
Yeah, Fred Brown, our epidemiologist, said it might be the new normal for a couple of years because until we get a vaccine, you see, there's so many obstacles there. First, you got to get the vaccine. And then from what he's been saying, that it's going to take a couple of doses for it to be effective. And then it'll be like the flu shot. You're going to have to get it every year. So on that basis, there's 9 billion people in the world. And let's say it's 2 or 3 shots each. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of vaccines to get around.
Yeah, that's rivers of vaccines.
Rivers of vaccine, which has never been done before. I mean, we really are, and we're on unexplored territory right now. And so hopefully our leaders and our healthcare folks are going to get this in order as quickly as possible.
That's
I just
right.
hope the anti-vaxxers don't jump in there, And I hope what it does is it prove that vaccinations are good, and a lot of people will change their minds, and we can eliminate polio and chickenpox and other things, and more people will jump on that bandwagon worldwide.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next week in the elections, because that's going to determine a variety of things. But I know we don't really talk politics on the show, but it's going to, because there's quite divergent points of view on the two candidates. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we think about, the effects that COVID has had, Mike, we were talking earlier in our show about electric vehicles,
Yep.
and we were saying, gee, that's going to reduce the demand for, oil and fossil fuels. But the demand is increasing right now because the home heating fuel is rising because everybody's at home.
Yeah, that's a study that just came out from the Michigan Public Service Commission. They do their annual they do the winter energy appraisal. That's what it's called.
Hmm.
And so that's the downside is, instead of being in the office, I mean, everyone's at home working. Not everyone. I mean, again, it's just the white collar workers. A lot of the folks just have to be on the job to do their job, right? So, but a large portion of the economy and large parts of the employment force is call them office workers, for want of a better term. And so they're working from home, clearly. I mean, like we all are right now on this broadcast, right? So and so that's just going to drive up the demand to keep the house warm. It looks like it's going to be a pretty typical normal Michigan winter from all the weather reports I've seen. So yeah, that is the downside, but you got to stay warm, right?
I love
Well,
the term when you say a typical normal Michigan winter. That means we have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
yeah, it's
Now,
you
the-
put your
and the
finger
good,
up in the air and see which way the wind is blowing. But I
yeah,
mean, I remember, was it 2 years ago we had that stretch of weather for about 2 weeks where it was like didn't rise above 20 below zero. God, I remember that day.
Oh, yeah.
I
oh my
couldn't start
gosh.
my car because my engine oil was like molasses, and I was afraid I was going to damage the engine. So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was crazy.
Well, overall, we don't have to worry about supply. We produce, you know, a lot of oil here in Michigan
Yeah,
through fracking and other means, and
we don't have a
good
refinery in
supplies.
Detroit. They have a big Marathon refinery there in Detroit. So,
Mhm. Well, it's
Yeah,
not
so
as bad as
we'll.
it was 2008, 2009, because I remember paying over $4 a pound for propane, and this year it's still $1.59.
yeah,
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 So,
it's
amazing.
when we say it's going up, it's not like going
right,
to like double or anything. It's just going up.
just going up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Supply and demand economics, right?
yeah, amazing.
Well, there's one thing that you brought up about working from home, Gary, and that's really kind of interesting. And I'm sure Mike will have some more information on this in future shows because I'm sure studies will be coming out from the Michigan universities. More than 2/3 of Silicon Valley professionals are feeling burnout from working at home.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's because they find themselves doing more work than they normally would do. I have found that it's really important when you're working from home, and you guys can probably agree with me on this in the next 30 seconds or so, that you have to have a separation between church and state. There's time for work and there's time for home life. Would you agree?
Well, not only that, is many of us commute. I remember when I would commute, it'd be sometimes half hour, but a lot of times an hour. Um, I was on the phone, but most of that time I scheduled my phone calls for when I was driving, uh, because and use headset and whatnot. But a lot of times it was just decompression time, right? So by the time you got home, all work was done and behind you, and you didn't have to do work when you got home. And now we don't have that
Decompression.
time to
That's a good point.
decompress. Yeah,
Blood pressure probably drops about 10 points
that's
when I ride home.
And
So
I don't think there's a day that goes by where I'm not doing some work. I mean, some days more than others, but the workload is always heavy. And but yeah, I mean, and there's no outlets. I mean, I used to go to Fraser's Bar when I wanted to have an outlet. I can't do that anymore,
that's
So
right.
I miss sitting on my bar stool drinking cold beer, So
yeah, but the one thing that we'll never miss is that every week we'll have Mike Brennan with all this information from us. And Mike, what is the best source for this information if you want to find out?
well, thank you, Cal. The check's in the mail. It's mitechnews.com.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot for being with us this week. Gary Baker, thank you so much for being
My
here on the
pleasure.
Internet Advisor. Ed Rudel, always there as well.
Always
And
great. Thanks, Cal.
okay, and my name is Cal Carson. Check us out at internetadvisor.net, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day.